cycling through the cups of the minor arcana of the Thoth Tarot. Hello everyone, thank you for joining me today. This is Taliesin McKnight, and today we will be cycling through the cups. This video is to be used as like a meditative device. I recommend listening to this video anytime that you want to cycle through the minor arcana. I always like to undergo a process of cycling through something, okay? So this video is like a meditative tool. We will be working through the minor arcana. We're going to be working through the cups cards. So this is my second video today. I did one video for everyone. This video is for Patreon only. After 1 year, this will be released to everybody. So when I do things like this, like reading, I try to do 2 videos that day to make up for it, because it is reading. Now, if you're working through this with me, I recommend that you pause the video. Please pause the video and take out all of the cups. This requires having the Thoth Tarot deck and the book of Thoth that comes with it. So you need the Thoth Tarot deck and a copy of the Book of Thoth, which I'm going to be reading it, so you technically don't need the book. But you need, in order to get the most out of this, you need to pause the video and pull out all of the cups. So pause the video and pull out the cup cards and put them in order. Beginning with the Ace, Ace of Cups, 2 of Cups, 3 of Cups, 4 of Cups, all the way to the Knight, Queen, Prince, and Princess. So you should have 14 cards here. So pause the video, pull out the cup cards and put them in order, and we will work through this together. So, the Ace of Cups. First of all, we're going to look at the aces in general. Page 177. So, take out the Ace of Cups. And first, we're going to look at the aces in general, and then the Ace of Cups in particular. So the aces. The aces represent the roots of the 4 elements. They are quite above and distinct from the other small cards, in the same way as Keter is said to be symbolized only by the topmost point of the Yod of Tetragrammaton. And these cards is no real manifestation of the element in its material form. They form a link between the small cards and the princesses, who rule the heavens around the North Pole. The meridian is the Great Pyramid, and the elements rule, going eastward, in the order of Tetragrammaton: fire, water, air, earth. Thus, roughly, aces, princesses, wands cover Asia. Cups, the Pacific Ocean. Swords, the Americas. Discs, Europe and Africa. To make this relationship clear, one may go a little into the symbol of the pentagram, or shield of David. It represents spirit ruling the 4 elements, and is thus a symbol of the triumph of man. And aces, as well as the major arcana, represent the element of spirit. The idea of the element of spirit is very difficult to grasp. The letter Shin, which is the letter of fire, has to do double duty by representing spirit as well. Generally speaking, the attributions of spirit are not clear and simple like those of the other elements. It is very remarkable that the tablet of spirit in the Enochian system is the key to all mischief. As in the Hindu system, Akasha is the egg of darkness. On the other hand, spirit represents Keter. Perhaps it was never in the mind of the exempt adept or adepts who invented the tarot to go so far into this matter. The point to remember is that, both in their appearance and in their meaning, the aces are not the elements themselves, but the seeds of those elements. Looking at the Ace of Cups itself, page 195. The root of the powers of water. So take out your Ace of Cups, the root of the powers of water, the Ace of Cups. This card represents the element of water in its most secret and original form. It is the feminine complement of the Ace of Wands, and is derived from the yoni and the moon, exactly as that is from the lingam and the sun. The third in the hierarchy. This accordingly represents the essential form of the Holy Grail. Upon the dark sea of Binah, the Great Mother, are lotuses, 2 in 1, which fill the cup with the life fluid, symbolically represented either as water, as blood, or as wine, according to the selected purpose of the symbolism. This being a primordial card, the liquid is shown as water. It can be transformed into wine or blood as may be required. Above the cup, descending upon it, is the dove of the Holy Ghost, thus consecrating the element. At the base of the cup is the moon, for it is the virtue of this card to conceive and to produce the second form of its nature. Now we pull out the Two of Cups. Love, the Two of Cups. And the deacon is Venus and Cancer. So first we're going to look at the twos in general on page 177. The twos. The twos. These cards refer to Chokmah. From the point of view of the ordinary person, Chokmah is really number 1 and not number 2. Because he is the first manifestation. Keter is completely concealed, so that nobody knows anything about it at all. Hence, only on reaching the deuces does an element appear as the element itself. Chokmah is uncontaminated by any influence. Therefore, the elements here appear in their original harmonious condition. The Two of Cups is the Lord of Love, which performs a similar office for water. It's talking about it represents water in its best and highest form. Page 195, Love, the Two of Cups. The two always represents the word and the will. It is the first manifestation. Therefore, in the suit of water, it must refer to love, which recovers unity from individuality by mutual annihilation. The card also refers to Venus and Cancer. Cancer is, more than any other, the receptive sign. It is the house of the moon, and in that sign Jupiter is exalted. These are superficially the 3 most friendly of the planets. The hieroglyph of the card represents 2 cups in the foreground, overflowing upon a calm sea. They are fed with lucent water from a lotus floating upon the sea, from which rises another lotus around whose stem are entwined twin dolphins. The symbolism of the dolphin is very complicated and must be studied in books of reference, but the general idea is that of the royal art. The dolphin is peculiarly sacred to alchemy. The number 2, referring to will. This card might really be renamed the Lord of Love under Will, for that is its full and true meaning. It shows the harmony of the male and the female, interpreted in the largest sense. It is perfect and placid harmony, radiating an intensity of joy and ecstasy. Of necessity, the realization of the idea in the 4, as the suit develops, will gradually diminish the purity of its perfection. We now come to and get out the 3 of Cups, abundance. And the deacon is Mercury in Cancer. So the 3 of Cups, abundance. Looking at the 3s in general on page 178. The 3s. These cards are referred to Binah. In each of them is expressed the symbolism of understanding. The idea has become fertilized. The triangle has been formulated. In each case, the idea is of a certain stability, which can never be upset, but from which a child can issue. The 3 of Cups is called the Lord of Abundance. The idea of love has come to fruition, but this is now sufficiently far down the tree to introduce a very definite differentiation between the suits, which was not previously possible. The 3 of Cups in particular on page 196. Abundance, the 3 of Cups. This card refers to Binah in the suit of water. This is the card of Demeter or Persephone. The cups are pomegranates. They are filled bountifully to overflowing from a single lotus, arising from the dark, calm sea characteristic of Binah. There is here the fulfillment of the will of love and abounding joy. It is the spiritual basis of fertility. The card is referred to the influence of Mercury in Cancer. This carries further the above thesis. Mercury is the will or word of the All-Father. Here its influence descends upon the most receptive of the signs. At the same time, the combination of these forms of energy brings in the possibility of somewhat mysterious ideas. Binah, the great sea, is the moon in one aspect, but Saturn in another. And Mercury, besides being the word or will of the All-One, is the guide of the souls of the dead. This card requires great subtlety of interpretation. The pomegranate was the fruit which Persephone ate in the realms of Pluto, thereby enabling him to hold her in the lower world, even after the most powerful influence had been brought to bear. The lesson seems to be that the good things of life, although enjoyed, should be distrusted. We take out the 4 of Cups. Luxury. The deacon is the moon in Cancer. The 4s in general on page 179. The 4s. These cards are attributed to Chesed. The connection between the number 4 and the number 3 is extremely complex. The important characteristic is that 4 is below the abyss. Therefore, in practice, it means solidification, materialization. Things have become manifest. The essential point is that it expresses the rule of law. All right. The 4 of Cups is called luxury. The masculine nature of fire permits the 4 of Wands to appear as a very positive and clear-cut conception. The weakness in the element of water threatens its purity. It is not quite strong enough to control itself properly. So the Lord of Pleasure is a little unstable. Purity has somehow been lost in the process of satisfaction. So 197, the 4 of Cups. Luxury, the 4 of Cups. This card refers, and this is page 197, Luxury, the 4 of Cups. This card refers to Chesed in the sphere of water. Here, below the abyss, the energy of this element, although ordered, balanced, and for the moment stabilized, has lost the original purity of the conception. The card refers to the moon in Cancer, which is her own house. But Cancer itself is so placed that this implies a certain weakness, an abandonment to desire. This tends to introduce the seeds of decay into the fruit of pleasure. The sea is still shown, but its surface is ruffled, and the 4 cups which stand upon it are no longer so stable. The lotus from which the water springs has a multiple stem, as if to show that the influence of the dyad has gathered strength. For although the number 4 is the manifestation and consolidation of the dyad, it is also secretly preparing catastrophe by emphasizing individuality. There is a certain parallelism between this card and the geomantic figure Via and Populus, which are attributed to the moon in her decrease and increase respectively. The link is primarily the change equals stability equation, already familiar to readers of this essay. 4 is an awkward number. Alone among the natural numbers, it is impossible to construct a magic square of 4 cells. Even in the Naples arrangement, 4 is a dead stop, a blind alley. An idea of a totally different order is necessary to carry on the series. Note also the refolding in upon itself, suggested by the magic number of 4. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, which is 10. 4 is the number of the curse of limitation, of restriction. It is the blind and barren cross of equal arms, tetragrammaton in his fatal aspect of finality, as the Kabbalists knew him before the discovery of the revolving formula, whereby the daughter seated upon the throne of the mother awakens the eld of the All-Father. For the meanings of Via and Populus refer to the Handbook of Geomancy, Equinox Volume 1, Number 2. We now take out the 5 of Cups, disappointment. On page 180, the fives in general. The fives. In the Naples arrangement, the introduction of the number 5 shows the idea of motion coming to the aid of that of matter. This is quite a revolutionary conception. The result is a complete upset of the statically stabilized system. Now appear storm and stress. This must not be regarded as something evil. The natural feeling about it is really a little more than the reluctance of people to get up from lunch and go back to the job. In the Buddhist doctrine of sorrow, this idea is implicit, that inertia and insensitiveness must characterize peace. The climate of India is perhaps partly responsible for this notion. The adepts of the white school, of which the tarot is the sacred book, cannot agree to such a simplification of existence. Every phenomenon is a sacrament. For all that, a disturbance is a disturbance. The 5 of Cups is called disappointment, as is only natural, because fire, the number 5, because fire delights in superabundant energy, whereas the water of pleasure is naturally placid, and any disturbance of ease can only be regarded as misfortune. Page 198, the 5 of Cups in particular. Disappointment, the 5 of Cups. This card is rolled by Geberah in the suit of water. Geberah being fiery, there is a natural antipathy. Hence arises the idea of disturbance, just when least expected in a time of ease. The attribution is also to Mars in Scorpio, which is his own house, and Mars is the manifestation on the lowest plane of Geberah, while Scorpio, in its worst aspect, suggests the putrefying power of water. Yet the powerful male influences do not show actual decay, only the beginning of destruction. Hence, the anticipated pleasure is frustrated. The lotuses have their petals torn by fiery winds. The sea is arid and stagnant, a dead sea, like a chott in North Africa. No water flows into the cups. Moreover, these cups are arranged in the form of an inverted pentagram, symbolizing the triumph of matter over spirit. Mars in Scorpio, moreover, is the attribution of the geomantic figure Rubeus. This is of such evil omen that certain schools of geomancy destroy the map and postpone the question for 2 hours or more when Rubeus appears in the ascendant. Its meaning is to be studied in the Handbook of Geomancy, Equinox Volume 1, Number 2. We now take out the 6 of Cups, pleasure. And the deacon is the sun in Scorpio. On page 181, the 6s in general. The 6s. These cards are attributed to Tiferet. This Sephira is in some respects the most important of all. It is the center of the whole system. It is the only Sephira below the abyss which communicates directly with Keter. It is fed directly from Chokmah and Binah, also from Chesed and Geberah. It is thus admirably fitted to dominate the lower Sephirot. It is balanced both vertically and horizontally. In the planetary system, it represents the sun, S-U-N. In the system of Tetragrammaton, it represents the sun, S-O-N. The entire geometrical complex of the Ruach may be regarded as an expansion from Tiferet. It represents consciousness in its most harmonized and balanced form, definitely in form, not only in idea, as in the case of the number 2. In other words, the Son is an interpretation of the Father in terms of the mind. The Six of Cups is called pleasure. This pleasure is a kind of pleasure which is completely harmonized. The zodiacal sign governing the card being Scorpio, pleasure is here rooted in its most convenient soil. This is preeminently a fertile card. It is one of the best in the pack. Page 198. Pleasure, the Six of Cups. This card shows the influence of the number 6, Tiferet, and the suit of water. This influence is fortified by that of the sun, who also represents the 6. The whole image is that of the influence of the sun on water. His fierce but balanced power operates that type of putrefaction. He is in the sign of Scorpio, which is the basis of all fertility, all life. The lotus stems are grouped in an elaborate dancing movement. From their blossoms, water gushes into the cups, but they are not yet full to overflowing, as they are in the corresponding card below, the 9. Pleasure, in the title of the card, must be understood in its highest sense. It implies well-being, harmony of natural forces without effort or strain, ease, satisfaction. Foreign to the idea of the card is the gratification of natural or artificial desires. Yet it does represent emphatically the fulfillment of the sexual will, as shown by the ruling Sephira, planet, element, and sign. In the I Ching, Soul in Scorpio is represented by the 20th hexagram Quan, which is also Big Earth, being the Earth trigram with doubled lines. Quan means manifesting, but also contemplating. The Thuan refers directly to an high priest, ceremonially purified, about to present his offerings. The idea of pleasure, putrefaction as a sacrament, is therefore implicit in this hexagram, as in this card, while the comments on the separate lines by the Duke of Chow indicate the analytical value of this Eucharist. It is one of the master keys to the gate of initiation. To realize and to enjoy this fully, it is necessary to know, to understand, and to experience the secret of the 9th degree of the OTO. We now take out the 7 of Cups. Debauch, which is Venus and Scorpio. Page 182, the 7s in general. The 7s. These cards are attributed to Netzach. The position is doubly unbalanced, off the middle pillar and very low down on the tree. It is taking a very great risk. It is taking a very great risk to descend so far into illusion, and above all to do it by frantic struggle. Netzach pertains to Venus. Netzach pertains to Earth. And the greatest catastrophe that can befall Venus is to lose her heavenly origin. The 4 sevens are not capable of bringing any comfort. Each one represents the degeneration of the element. Its utmost weakness is exposed in every case. The 7 of Cups is called debauch. This is one of the worst ideas that one can have. Its mode is poison. Its goal, madness. It represents the delusion of delirium tremens and drug addiction. It represents the sinking into the mire of false pleasure. There is something almost suicidal in this card. It is particularly bad because there is nothing whatever to balance it, no strong planet to hold it up. Venus goes after Venus, and Earth is churned into the scorpion morass. Page 199, the 7 of Cups in particular. Debauch, the 7 of Cups. This card refers to the 7, Netzach, in the suit of water. Here recurs the invariable weakness arising from lack of balance. Also, the card is governed by Venus and Scorpio. Her dignity is not quite good in this sign. One is reminded that Venus is the planet of copper, external splendor and internal corruption. The lotuses have become poisonous, looking like tiger lilies, and instead of water, green slime issues from them and overflows, making the sea a malarious morass. Venus redoubles the influence of the number 7. The cups are iridescent, carrying out the same idea. They are arranged as 2 descending triangles, interlaced above the lowest cup, which is very much larger than the rest. This card is almost the evil and averse image of the 6. It is a wholesome reminder of the fatal ease with which a sacrament may be profaned and prostituted. Lose direct touch with Keter, the highest, diverge never so little from the delicate balance of the middle pillar. At once the holiest mysteries of nature become the obscene and shameful secrets of a guilty conscience. We take out the 8 of Cups, indolence. The deacon is Saturn in Pisces. Indolence, by the way, basically means like laziness. All right, page 183, the 8s in general. The 8s. The number 8, the 4 8s are attributed to Hod, being in the same plane as the 7s on the tree of life, but on the other side, the same inherent defects as are found in the 7s will apply. Yet one may perhaps urge this alleviation, that the 8s come as, in a sense, a remedy for the error of the 7s. The mischief has been done, and there is now a reaction against it. One may therefore expect to find that, while there is no possibility of perfection in the cards of this number, they are free from such essential and original errors as in the lower case. Let me see here. The 8 of Cups is called indolence. This card is the very apex of unpleasantness. It is ruled by the planet Saturn. Time, sorrow, have descended upon pleasure, and there is no strength in the element of water which can react against it. This card is not exactly the morning after the night before, but it is very nearly that. The difference is that the night before has not happened. This card represents a party for which all preparations have been made. but the host has forgotten to invite the guests, or the caterers have not delivered the good cheer. There is this difference, though, that it is in some way or other the host's own fault. The party that he planned was just a little bit above his capacity. Perhaps he lost heart at the last moment. Page 200, the Eight of Cups in particular. Indolence, the Eight of Cups. The 8, Hod, in the suit of water, governs this card. It shows the influence of Mercury, but this is overpowered by the reference of the card to Saturn and Pisces. Pisces is calm but stagnant water, and Saturn deadens it completely. Water appears no longer as the sea, but as pools, and there is no fluorescence in this card, as there was in the last. The lotuses droop for lack of sun and rain, and the soil is poison to them. Only 2 of the stems show blossoms at all. The cups are shallow, old, and broken. They are arranged in 3 rows. Of these, the upper row of 3 is quite empty. Water trickles from the 2 flowers into the 2 central cups, and they drip into the 2 lowest without filling them. The background of the card shows pools or lagoons in very extensive country, incapable of cultivation. Only disease and miasmatic poison can flourish in those vast badlands. The water is dark and muddy. On the horizon is a pallid yellowish light, weighed down by leaden clouds of indigo. Compared with the last card, it represents the opposite in complementary error. The one is the Garden of Kundry, the other the Palace of Klingsor. In the psychopathology of the path, this card is the German measles of Christian mysticism. We now take out the 9 of Cups. Happiness, and that's the Jupiter in Pisces. Page 185, the 9s. These cards are attributed to Yesod. After the double excursion into misfortune, the current returns to the middle pillar. This Sephira is the seed of the great crystallization of energy, but it takes place very far down the tree, at the apex of the 3rd descending triangle, and a flat triangle at that. There is little help from low, unbalanced spheres like Netzach and Hod. What saves Yesod is the direct ray from Tiferet. This Sephira is in the direct line of succession. Each of these cards gives the full impact of the elemental force, but in its most material sense, that is, of the idea of the force, for Yesod is still in Yetzirah, the formative world. Zoroaster says the number 9 is sacred and attains the summit of perfection. Egypt and Rome also had 9 major deities. The 9 of Cups is called happiness. This is a peculiarly good card because happiness, as the word implies, is much a matter of luck. The card is ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is fortune. And in all these watery cards, there is a certain element of illusion. They begin by love, and love is the greatest and most deadly of the illusions. The sign of Pisces is the refinement, the fading away of this instinct, which begun with dreadful hunger and carried on with passion, has now become a dream within a dream. The card is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter in Pisces is indeed good fortune, but only in the sense of complete satiety. The fullest satisfaction is merely the matrix of a further putrefaction. There is no such thing as absolute rest. A cottage in the country with the roses all around it? No. There is nothing permanent in this. There is no rest from the universe. Nothing guarantees stability. Change guarantees stability. Stability guarantees change. Page 200, the Nine of Cups in particular. Happiness, the Nine of Cups. The number 9, Yesod, in the suit of water, restores the stability lost by the excursions of Netzach and Hod from the middle pillar. It is also the number of the moon, thus strengthening the idea of water. In this card is the pageant of the culmination and perfection of the original force of water. The ruler is Jupiter in Pisces. This influence is more than sympathetic. It is a definite benediction, for Jupiter is the planet of Chesed, which represents water in its highest material manifestation, and Pisces brings out the placid qualities of water. In the symbol are 9 cups perfectly arranged in a square. All are filled and overflowing with water. It is the most complete and most beneficent aspect of the force of water. The geomantic figure, Letitia, is ruled by Jupiter in Pisces. For its meaning, consult the Handbook of Geomancy, Equinox Volume 1, Number 2. Letitia, joy, gladness, is one of the best and most powerful of the 16 figures, for the solar, lunar, and mercurial symbols are, at the best, ambiguous and treacherously ambivalent. Those of Venus portend rather relief than positive beneficence. Saturn and Mars are seen at their worst, and even the stable companion of Letitia, Acquisitio, has its unpleasant aspects and even its dangers. But the consonance of Letitia with this card amounts to little less than an identity. The wine is poured by Ganymede himself, unstinted vintage of true nectar of the gods, brimful and running over, an ordered banquet of delight, true wisdom self-fulfilled in perfect happiness. We now take out the 10 of Cups, satiety. And this is Mars in Pisces. Page 187, the 10s in general. The 10s. These cards are attributed to Malkut. Here is the end of all energy. It is away from the formative world altogether, where things are elastic. There is now no planetary attribution to consider. So far as the Sephira is concerned, it is right down in the world of Asiya. By the mere fact of having devised 4 elements, the current has derogated from the original perfection. The 10s are a warning, see whither it leads, to take the first wrong step. The 10 of Cups is called satiety. Which satiety is like when you eat to fullness and you don't want any more. It's like you've received the pleasure to where you don't want any more. That's what satiety means. So the 10 of Cups is called satiety. Its attribution is Mars and Pisces. The watery sign has sunk into a stagnant dream. but in it broods and breeds the violent quality of Mars to putrefy it. As it is written, until a dart strike through his liver. The pursuit of pleasure has been crowned with perfect success, and constantly it is discovered that, having got everything that one wanted, one did not want it after all. Now one must pay. Page 201, the Ten of Cups in particular. Satiety, the Ten of Cups. This card represents a conflicting element. On the one hand, it receives the influence of the ten, Malkut, the Virgin. Malka. I'm going to reread that. Satiety, the Ten of Cups. This card represents a conflicting element. On the one hand, it receives the influence of the ten, Malka, the Virgin. The arrangement of the cups is that of the tree of life. But on the other hand, they are themselves unstable. They are tilted. They spill the water from the great lotus, which overhangs the whole system, from one into the other. The work proper to water is complete, and disturbance is due. This comes from the influence of Mars and Pisces. Mars is the gross, violent, and disruptive force which inevitably attacks every supposed perfection. His energy displays the greatest possible contrast with that of Pisces, which is both peaceful and spiritualized. Now we move to the court cards. Take out the Knight of Cups. First, we go to look at the Knights in general, page 149. And in the Thoth deck, the Knights are the king, basically. So it's Knight, Queen, Prince, Princess. So the Knight is the king in this deck. So the Knights in general, page 149. The Knights represent the powers of the letter Yod in the name. They are the most sublime, original, active part of the energy of the element. For this reason, they are represented on horseback and clad in complete armor. Their action is swift and violent, but transient. In the element of fire, for instance, the knight corresponds to the lightning flash. In the element of water, to rain and springs. In that of air, to wind. And that of earth to mountains. It is very important as a mental exercise to work out for oneself the correspondences between the symbol and the natural forces which they represent, and it is essential to practical magical work to have assimilated this knowledge. Now if we flip to the back of the book to page 286, these cards are associated with natural forces. The Knight of Cups is fire of water. It represents rain and springs. Swift, passionate attack. So sudden rain or coming up springs. Now, the Knight of Cups in particular. The Knight of Cups represents the fiery part of water, the swift, passionate attack of rain and springs, more intimately, water's power of solution. He rules the heavens from the 21st degree of Aquarius to the 20th degree of Pisces. He is clothed in black armor, furnished with bright wings, which together with the leaping attitude of his white charger indicates that he represents the most active aspect of the card. In his right hand he bears a cup from which issues a crab, the cardinal sign of water for aggressiveness. His totem is the peacock, for one of the stigmata of water in its most active form is brilliance. There is here also some reference to the phenomena of fluorescence. The characteristics of the person signified by this card are nevertheless mostly passive, in accordance with the zodiacal attribution. He is graceful, dilettante, with the qualities of Venus or a weak Jupiter. He is amiable in a passive way. He is quick to respond to attraction and easily becomes enthusiastic under such stimulus. But he is not very enduring. He is exceedingly sensitive to external influence, but with no material depth in his character. When the card is ill-dignified, he is sensual, idle, and untruthful. Yet with all this he possesses an innocence and purity which are the essence of his nature. But he is, on the whole, so superficial that it is hard to reach this depth. His name is writ in water. In the Yi Ching, the fiery part of water is represented by the 54th hexagram Kuei Mei. The commentary is singularly obscure and somewhat sinister. It deals with the difficulties of rightly mating such opposites as fire and water. Compare the Queen of Wands, but in that case water is the calming and modulating influence, while here it is fire which creates trouble. Swiftness and violence ill suit a character naturally placid. It is rare indeed to meet with a person who has succeeded in harmonizing these conflicting elements. He tends to mismanage all his affairs, and unless sheer good fortune attend him, his whole career will be an unbroken record of pleasure and of failure and disaster. Often his mental civil war ends in schizophrenia or melancholy, madness. The abuse of stimulants and narcotics may precipitate the catastrophe. We now come to the Queen of Cups. On page 150, the queens in general. The queens represent the letter He of the name. They are the complements of the knights. They receive, ferment, and transmit the original energy of their knight. Quick to receive that energy, they are also fitted to endure for the period of their function. But they are not the final product. They represent the second stage in the process of creation, whose fourth and last state is material realization. They are represented as seated upon thrones. This emphasizes the fact that they are appointed to exercise definite functions. We go to the back of the book, page 268. The Queen of Cups is water of water. It represents the pool, stagnant spiritualized reflection of images. Alright, so the Queen of Cups in particular, on page 157, the Queen of Cups. So, the Queen of Cups. The Queen of Cups represents the watery part of water, its power of reception and reflection. In the zodiac, it rules from the 21st degree of Gemini to the 20th degree of Cancer. Her image is of extreme purity and beauty, with infinite subtlety. To see the truth of her is hardly possible, for she reflects the nature of the observer in great perfection. She is represented as enthroned upon still water. In her hand she bears a shell-like cup, from which issues a crayfish, and she bears also the lotus of Isis, of the Great Mother. She is robed in and veiled by endless curves of light, and the sea upon which she is enthroned conveys the almost unbroken images of the image which she represents. The characteristics associated with this card are principally dreaminess, illusion, and tranquility. She is the perfect agent and patient, able to receive and transmit everything without herself being affected thereby. If ill-dignified, all these qualities are degraded. Everything that passes through her is refracted and distorted. But speaking generally, her characteristics depend mostly upon the influences which affect her. In the I Ching, the watery part of water is represented by the 58th hexagram Tui. The commentary is as colorless as the card. It consists of mild exhortations on the subject of pleasure. It may really be said that, normally, people of this type have no character at all of their own, unless it can be called a characteristic to be at the disposition of every impact or impression. There is, however, a hint, line 6, that the chief pleasure of people of this type is to lead and attract others. Such are accordingly often enough exceedingly popular. We now get to the Prince of Cups. First, we look at the princes in general. Page 150. The princes represent the forces of the letter Vau in the name. The prince is the son of the queen, the old king's daughter, by the knight who has won her. He is therefore represented as in a chariot, going forth to carry out the combined energy of his parents. He is the active issue of their union, and its manifestation. He is the intellectual image of their union. His action is consequently more enduring than that of his forebears. In one respect, indeed, he acquires a relative permanence, because he is the published record of what has been done in secret. Also, he is the dying God, redeeming his bride in the hour and by the virtue of his murder. We go to the back of the book, page 268. The Prince of Cups is the heir of water. Heir of water is the sea, S-E-A. Heir of water, the sea, steady force of putrefaction. Now we go to the Prince of Cups in particular. Page 157. The Prince of Cups. The Prince of Cups represents the airy part of water. On the one hand, elasticity, volatility, hydrostatic equilibrium. On the other hand, the catalytic faculty and the energy of steam. He rules from the 21st degree of Libra to the 20th degree of Scorpio. He is a warrior partly clad in armor, which seems, however, rather a growth than a covering. His helmet is surmounted by an eagle, and his chariot, which resembles a shell, is also drawn by an eagle. His wings are tenuous, almost of gas. This is a reference to his power of volatilization understood in the spiritual sense. In his right hand he bears a lotus flower, sacred to the element of water, and in his left hand is a cup from which issues a serpent. The third totem, the scorpion, is not shown in the picture, for the putrefaction which it represents is an extremely secret process. Beneath his chariot is the calm and stagnant water of a lake upon which rain falls heavily. The whole symbolism of this card is exceedingly complicated, for Scorpio is the most mysterious of the signs, and the manifested portion of it symbolized by the eagle is in reality the least important part of his nature. The moral characteristics of the person pictured in this card are subtlety, secret violence, and craft. He is intensely secret, an artist in all his ways. On the surface he appears calm and imperturbable, but this is a mask of the most intense passion. He is on the surface susceptible to external influences, but he accepts them only to transmute them to the advantage of his secret designs. He is thus completely without conscience in the ordinary sense of the word, and is therefore usually distrusted by his neighbors. They feel they do not and can never understand him. Thus he inspires unreasonable fear. He is in fact perfectly ruthless. He cares intensely for power, wisdom, and his own aims. He feels no responsibility to others, and although his abilities are so immense, he cannot be relied upon to work in fairness. In the Yi Ching, the airy part of water is represented by the 61st hexagram Kung Fu. This is one of the most important figures in the Yi. It moves even pigs and fish and leads to great good fortune. Its dignities and correspondences are manifold and great, for it is also a big Li, the trigram of soul formed by doubling the lines. By shape it suggests a boat, but also the geomantic figure of Carcer, Saturn and Capricornus. This card is in consequence one of great power. Libra going over into Scorpio is of tremendous active, critical energy and weight. To such people, goodwill, sincerity, and right mating are the essentials of success. Their danger is overweening ambition. And finally, to the last of the cards today, the Princess of Cups. First, we look at the princesses. Oh, I opened right to it. That's cool. First, we look at the princesses in general. The princesses represent the he final of the name. They represent the ultimate. This is page 150. The princesses represent the he final of the name. They represent the ultimate issue of the original energy and its completion, its crystallization, its materialization. They also represent the counterbalancing, the reabsorption of the energy. They represent the silence into which all things return. They are thus at the same time permanent and non-existent, an audit of the equation 0 equals 2. The princesses have no zodiacal attribution, yet evidently they represent 4 types of human being. They are those numerous elemental people whom we recognize by their lack of all sense of responsibility, whose moral qualities seem to lack bite. They are subdivided according to planetary predominance. Such types have been repeatedly described in fiction. As Eliphas Levi wrote, the love of the magus for such creatures is insensate and may destroy him. I'll continue and read this. The relations between these 4 elements of the name are extraordinarily complex, quite beyond the limits of any ordinary treatise to discuss. They change with every application of thought to their meaning. For instance, no sooner has the princess made her appearance than the prince wins her in marriage, and she is set upon the throne of her mother. She thus awakens the eld of the original old king, who thereupon becomes a young knight, and so renews the cycle. The princess is not only the perfect maiden, but owing to the death of the prince, the forsaken and lamenting widow. All this occurs in the legends characteristic of the Aeon of Osiris. It is hardly possible definitely to disentangle these complications, but for the student it is sufficient if he will be content to work with one legend at a time. It is natural that the Aeon of Osiris, the regimen of air, of strife, of intellect, should be thus confused, that its symbols and formulas should overlap, should contradict each other. It is impossible to harmonize the multitudinous fables or parables, because each was invented to emphasize some formula that was regarded as imperative to serve some local or temporal purpose. And the princesses don't have the natural force thing. So page 159, the Princess of Cups. The Princess of Cups represents the earthy part of water, in particular the faculty of crystallization. She represents the power of water to give substance to idea, to support life, and to form the basis of chemical combination. She is represented as a dancing figure, robed in a flowing garment, on whose edges crystals are seen to form. For her crest she wears a swan with open wings. The symbolism of this swan reminds one of the swan in Oriental philosophy, which is the word Om, or Om, which is the symbol of the entire process of creation. She bears a covered cup from which issues a tortoise. This is again the tortoise which in Hindu philosophy supports the elephant on whose back is the universe. She is dancing upon a foaming sea in which disports himself a dolphin, the royal fish which symbolizes the power of creation. The character of the princess is infinitely gracious. All sweetness, all voluptuousness, gentleness, kindness, and tenderness are in her character. She lives in the world of romance, in the perpetual dream of rapture. On a superficial examination, she might be thought selfish and indolent, but this is a quite false impression. Silently and effortlessly she goes about her work. In the I Ching, the earthy part of water is represented by the 41st hexagram, Sun. This means diminution, the dissolution of all solidity. People described by this card are very dependent on others, but at the same time helpful to them. Rarely at the best are they of individual importance. As helpmeets they are unsurpassed. And that is the Princess of Cups. So, we have just successfully worked. Thank you for sticking with me with that. We have, what was that, an hour? We have just worked through all of the cups of the Book of Thoth. So this is a useful meditative device. Hopefully some of y'all that you find this useful for contemplation in your practice. So I'm glad that we went through that together. And thank you so much for joining me. And I will see y'all in the next video.